So greetings. You're listening to the Native Business Podcast. This is episode 8.
Yes.
And my name is Gary Davis. This is the amazing
Carmen Davis.
And we welcome you to another episode of the Native Business Podcast. Native Business, the voice of business in Indian country. And we have some incredible guests today. 2
amazing Indigenous women. We have Vanessa Roanhorse and Stephine Poston. And, first, I love to see our Indigenous women rise and excel. So it's an honor to have you both on the Native Business Podcast, as you both are doing very important work to ensure other Native women have the tools and support to succeed as well.
And so before we jump right to them, I know that was kind of an intro there. So we'll pause the intro really quickly to remind people to come visit us at nativebusinessmag.com.
Of course.
And all of our, I think I learned this from you on the last episode. It's
socials.
So could you run down all of our socials?
Our socials, we have on Twitter, Native Biz Mag. On Instagram and Facebook, it is Native Business Magazine. And on our YouTube, if you search Native Business Magazine...
You're out there on your own on YouTube.
Hopefully, we will get our own URL soon.
We just need more subscribers. So please
Absolutely.
Head on over there. Subscribe to the wonderful, good stuff. You can listen to the podcast. You can watch videos. There's an amazing little documentary that we did on the Mandan Hidatsa Narikara's food sovereignty trip to the wonderful country of the Netherlands. And just a lot of great content there. More coming, but be sure to go over to YouTube, subscribe there. And without any further ado, we want to make sure that everybody knows all the great things that are happening out there with entrepreneurs across Indian country, and you already have basically introduced. So without any further ado, we want to make sure that folks hear from folks that are out there doing all of these great things on a daily basis. And we've always known that Native business and everything Native business represents will only be accomplished through the voices of all of the folks out there in business in Indian country. So with that, Vanessa Roanhorse, Stephine Poston, welcome to the Native Business Podcast.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be on it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's great to be a part of this. And I first want to congratulate you all on the work that you're doing to provide the platform to give people the opportunity at a wide-reaching range. So I'm really proud of the work that you're doing as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a real privilege to have both of you on. I think Carmen has maybe our lead-off question for both of you. And I think maybe it's introductions and just to tell the folks all the great things you're doing.
Yes. If you both can give some background on what you both do individually.
Sure. I can jump in, Steph. So obviously my name is Vanessa Roanhorse. I own a private consulting company called Roanhorse Consulting. I'm Vanessa from the Navajo Nation, grew up on the nation. I returned back to the Four Corners about 4 years ago and moved to Mexico and started the company. And the work that we do is specifically focused on working with unheralded communities, businesses, organizations, individuals, particularly to achieve and inspire what we consider their self-determination through communities of practice, strengthening Indigenous evaluation methods, and then creating equity through entrepreneurship, which is why I think what you have built with Native Business Magazine resonates so strongly to storytelling. It's a difficult thing for many of us to do, having a place for storytelling, not only culturally, but ultimately in lifting the voice of the Indigenous entrepreneur is so important. And then lastly, Roanhorse Consulting, we really are trying to figure out community-led ways to create economic empowerment from within. We definitely believe in designing wealth and power building efforts, and we want that to directly invest in our leaders. And so a lot of this work is not individual. We may be a for-profit consulting company, but consulting is very little of what we do. Most of it comes from the people we work with, and what we hope to do is just co-design and co-create with them.
Vanessa, thank you. And Stephanie, tell the folks a little bit about you and where you come from and the great things that you're doing.
Awesome. As they mentioned, my name is Stephine Poston, or I go by Steph. I am from the Pueblo of Sandia, which is immediately north of Albuquerque. I've had my business Poston and Associates for 15 years now. I specialize in elevating the Native story through public relations, marketing, event planning. And so I've been doing that for 15 years. I have two amazing sons, Marcus and John. And I've just been spending a lot of time on working on Native Women Lead with my amazing co-founder, one of the amazing other co-founders here with us today, Vanessa Roanhorse, and the others, to really give tools and resources to women and inspire them to start their own businesses as a way of economic self-sufficiency. I feel like when women are safe and secure economically, that we can be better mothers, daughters, partners, what have you, and our communities are stronger. So I think Native Women Lead, I officially will be 2 years old in October when we had our Elevate session. And it's amazing the type of traction, the type of energy that's been around it. I didn't realize that there was so much need. I just knew it shouldn't have to be as challenging as it was for me to get started.
Absolutely. You know, what do they say? If you want to go a short distance, go alone. If you want to go a long distance, go with other folks. And I think truly enough in the sustainability aspect of things, together we're louder, we're stronger, we're better, and we can draw off the strengths of others. And absolutely, I think that's the best long-term goal for any of us to have, is to do things more inclusively with each other. And as we all know, sometimes that can be slightly a challenge in Indian country. There's a lot of things running around out there that keep that from happening sometimes. But also, Vanessa, I think we would be remiss, and you know, I think we maybe get to a certain age in life and we first talk about our kids. So I know Stephanie gave a shout out to her kids. You want to do the shout out to your family real quick?
I would love that. I would love to say hi to my son. He's 5. He can't sit still for anything, but yes to him, and then yes to my husband. And also I have a twin sister, and so I hope when she gets to listen to this, she'll be excited because she's actually joining my company this fall.
Oh,
so
that's amazing.
My sister Olivia will be bringing her background in Indigenous evaluation and public health policy from the No to Be Gay Foundation over to Roanhorse Consulting.
Wonderful. That is wonderful.
It's going to be a family affair.
That's amazing.
We have one of those 5-year-olds too, and we know it's very complicated for them to be still and and focus sometimes. But I think, Carmen, you have a question.
Yeah. So, well, first, you know, I know that I had the honor and privilege of speaking briefly at the Native Women's Business Summit that it was the second one that took place in April. And, you know, it's just very motivating and very just inspiring to be there. So if you could kind of both tell, you know, what was the impetus for creating Native Women Lead?
So where Native Women Lead was born from, I think, started about 2 years ago, but actually, I had been thinking based on Michelle Obama, the State of Women initiative that she had. I wanted to have the State of Pueblo women. I mean, we have so many amazing, we're strong culturally, language-wise, community-wise, but like everybody else, we have our challenges. And it's stayed in my mind for a long time. And how to do that. I actually visited with funders. But it turns out several of the women who had gone through Native Entrepreneurs in Residence had got invited to attend a World Women's Economic Global Forum of some sort. And nobody signed up for a session except the ones that were presenting. And from there we said, you know, if people aren't ready to hear us, we'll create our own space. And that's how we did Elevate. And Elevate happened in October 2017. And that was designed to get information from our community about what they would like to see in a summit, a business summit. And from there, April 2018 was our inaugural business summit. It was bursting at the seams. So this past April, we increased the capacity, moved it to a bigger venue, and from there it's just every which way. There's just so much interest and so much energy. It makes me smile. Sometimes the work gets a little challenging, a little heavy, but I realize that the need is there, and just to work with the other women in Native Women Lead is such an energizing and uplifting experience.
That's so amazing. And, you know, I love Native Women Leads, the core values. Vanessa, can you speak on those a little bit?
Absolutely. So the core values came really from the community at Elevate. When we came up with this concept, as Steph mentioned, the organization is founded by all women entrepreneurs, Indigenous women who had businesses or had been working in a leadership role. And we brought these questions to the people. And honestly, it was the folks who came to us who helped us really develop these values. So it goes that, you know, Native and Indigenous women are the backbones of their family. We are emerging as leaders and entrepreneurs, and we are weaving our knowledge, our stories, and our communities together. And we are empowering each other to reach to the next level, whether it's in leadership, as a CEO, or even as a congresswoman. The idea is that we have all the ingredients. We've always had these parts. We just sometimes forget them, but when we bring them together and we hold these values, the goal for the work is always to make those major decisions for Native Women Lead through the values. But more importantly, to always remember that this came because the community wanted it. And that's really important for us, is that if Native women, Indigenous women aren't asking for these things, don't want us to be providing these, we're not here to just fill space. We want to provide like an actual platform, but more importantly, a platform that really honors the history of all of our peoples, but is really looking into the future. You know, one of our taglines with Native Women Lead is that the future is Indigenous women. And part of that, again, is that, you know, I think we all are having to return back to how are we looking at a community and culture and values and money that comes from a place where communities first, health and wellness is second. And then more importantly, like things, those are just the tools that get us to the next place. So that's really the BWE values that we use everything around.
We want to absolutely congratulate you both as well for being part of the inaugural Native Business Top 50 Entrepreneurs.
Yes.
I don't know quite how it worked out, but you both ended up on page 27 of the magazine. So not only in Native Women Leads, but also in the magazine, you're right there neck and neck together. But, you know, entrepreneurship is a huge component to I think the future of Indian country. And, you know, we can talk about economic success and we can talk about, you know, success with our tribal nations. But if we don't have Native-owned business to source the opportunities to, it seems almost unattainable for us to ever have true economy in our communities. One of the things that we really have to look at is the building of entrepreneurship, you know, the teaching, the transfer of knowledge to the next generation of folks that are out there doing it, because, you know, it's not easy. You know, life is hard. You know, being an entrepreneur is harder. And, you know, it's different than when you know, have a job and you collect a check every, you know, on the 1st and the 15th, and you know where your money's coming in and you're just focused on when you have to go out and hunt for your paycheck. It really comes down to how good of a hunter you are. And, you know, what you guys are doing, it really shining a light on, you know, women and all the great things that you're doing in your own business. It speaks as loud as anything, even with all the great things you're doing with your business, that the fact that you are out there being successful resonates with young folks and with other entrepreneurs. It's inspiring. It motivates them. So, Carmen, I think you have a question more focused on entrepreneurship.
Well, first, while we're kind of talking about, you know, Native women and you guys providing the tools and support. One of the great things that at the conference that I found was amazing is that you guys provided childcare. That is something that as a Native woman and, you know, as a mother, sometimes, you know, it's hard to have to go to a business event and you have to leave your child behind, or you're worried about childcare. So that wasn't necessarily a question, but just wanted to give you
Can we keep it really real? Let's keep it really real. So we're sitting here listening to you talk, and our 8-year-old son walks in like,
exactly.
Like, what are you guys doing? But I think that's, again, one of the blessings of being an entrepreneur is you can do what you do, how you want to do it. And one of the things for us, it's always been about family. I mean, we raised our oldest son out on the road with us, running around Indian country. It's really been part and parcel with our businesses to make it, the biggest value add for us is that, we get the benefit of being together as a family, and we don't have to go off for 8 hours a day and be apart. And work at 2 separate jobs or do something else. It's a huge luxury, and we recognize that as a luxury.
Yes.
So, we definitely realize the struggle is real.
The struggle is so real. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because I think Native Women Lead, you guys are really, just taking the lead on providing answers, so it's not necessarily an excuse, but that you can include your family in what you're doing as a business person. And so just wanted to, shout you guys out on that. But what advice would you give to a young new entrepreneur that is just starting out? And if you want to start on that, Stephanie.
I think one of the beautiful things about Native Women Lead is it's really coming from a space of there's plenty to go around. If you see somebody doing something that you like, that you're interested in, find that bravery, find that courage to go ask them for advice. How did you get started? How did you do it? And I know a lot of times we're a little bit intimidated, but I will tell you, when people have come to me and asked them, I am so delighted. I'm so impressed with their bravery and courage. I will sit down and take the time. So to find a way to ask the person who's doing what you like to be doing, how they got there, how they got it done. And then just be willing to put in the work. Be willing to put in the work, focus on your passion, and although you do have to mind the books, and make sure folks get paid, something magical about following your passion makes it really, really work. So that's the advice. Have the courage to go out there and ask the people that are already doing it for their advice and guidance.
And before we go to you, Vanessa, something you just said, Stephanie, reminds me of something I just heard, which was you'll never be criticized by somebody doing as well or more than you. Most of the criticism will come from folks that are wanting to do what you're doing or aspiring to do what you're doing. That's where all the negativity comes in. I agree with you. There's sometimes that we'll be at a place and we'll see someone and, we will be, isn't she, I think is she your friend on Facebook? Or I've seen that, I've heard her name. And then the next thing you know, it's like, you get back home and we're far away from there. Somebody will shout you out on Facebook. And it's like, why didn't you just come over, man? Like, why didn't you just come step up and say hello? And, I think that's some of the things that we just are too hesitant sometimes to step up and just go for it. And, of course, being an entrepreneur, you got to have all that. You got to be willing to seize the opportunity. And so 1,000% completely get it. It requires you to be bold and to step out and have confidence in who you are. So Vanessa, what are your thoughts? What would you tell someone that was just getting started or had entrepreneurial dreams?
I completely echo Stephanie's, it's so hard to go out and ask for advice. And if you come from a place where you feel like, you're not told that's what you can do. I don't think entrepreneurship, at least the language of entrepreneurship has really, I don't think a lot of our, our Native communities back home realize that it's just it's a French word, it's not our language, but that we've been entrepreneurial forever. We've had, economies driving thousands and thousands of years from the top of this continent to the bottom. And that we had these
I think we got
robust economies.
We got to give a big round of applause for that one, because there's not anywhere close to enough people that realize how much entrepreneurship has been a part of. So preach that. Preach.
Great. No, I mean, I say these things because it's true, and we've forgotten because of colonization and our own, the systems of oppression that has always been who we are. We've made nothing out of something every time, and we keep doing it, which is why people talk about resilience. And we're like, just look at the First Nations people, the first peoples of these lands. I mean, when you think about resilience. So to get off of that a little bit, but I say that because when I meet folks wanting to get into a business or have a dream and idea, my first thing is I tell them my story, which is I'm a reluctant entrepreneur. This was not what I thought I was going to do with my life. And that my journey has been more of a journey of just need. I needed to put money in my hands so I could put food on the table and a roof over my family's head. And that's what drove me. And somehow I found myself starting a company. It was messy and ugly, and I messed up on my books. And I did all of those things probably in the backwards. Like if there was a path, I did it all backwards. But I say that to folks to let them know that, what you see is maybe a successful person, but that's only through trial and error. And I continually picked myself back up and tried again and again. And I've approached every situation with respect to the people I work with the utmost respect. And more importantly, if I'm serious about change, I have to be willing to be out in front, taking the hits. And if I fail, I take responsibility. Because at the end of the day, if we're not allowing ourselves that ability to dream big, we also have to be okay with failure and some kind of safety net. And I just want everyone to know that this journey it's not for everyone, but man, if you're down for it, it is the best ride of your life. And everyone around you is going to be there with you, because I think within Indian country, we all have to link arms, because what we're up against is we're less than 2% of the population. And if we don't, then we will fail ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That message has to get out. And I'm so glad that you said it, and all the people that are listening right now to that. I think that most people fail because they don't start. Mm-hmm. And it can be so overwhelming, or it can seem so unattainable, or just that maybe we don't have the skill sets, or, it's been so tough in some of my travels where that there may not have been the luxury that folks had, that I had with my father and my grandfather, to see entrepreneurs. And I didn't really know it. I couldn't put a finger on it when I was growing up, but I was, through osmosis, I was absorbing all those things that they did. And there's that whole saying, if you don't see it, how can you be it?
Right.
And I think that's something that really resonates in what you're saying, is that, two things. I got to go back to it, that we've always been entrepreneurs. We've always found ways to work with each other and to do business with each other. And that wasn't always something that was just, wake up and go 10 feet and talk to somebody. People came to epicenters of trade from all over North America, literally traveled the seas and came here. And it wasn't easy, but it was important. And it was so important that they risked. I mean, today we think we, get a sprained ankle, or we get a little, even if it's a broken bone, those things, every time you moved further or did more, you ran the risk of any kind of injury, could be life-threatening. And the fact that folks did it speaks to how important it was to them to do it. And they knew the vitality of what would come from it, and how it would support each other, themselves. But, just absolutely, that we have always been entrepreneurs has to, and again, it is a French word, but that we did business with each other. We traded with each other. We helped each other sustain ourselves. So, very important.
One of the things too is that, I know that we covered Native Women Lead in our inaugural Native Business magazine back in November. And there was a sidebar of the state of Native women in business. And so if you want to talk a little bit, which included the stats. And so if you want to kind of talk about the stats and at the same time, what can we do as a community to raise awareness, and what can we do to provide tools?
It is what it is. We're still growing Native entities, but that really tribes and other tribal entities really make it policy to truly walk the talk and hire and contract and vendor with Native-owned businesses, that they really make that a part of it. But the other thing that we're working on with Native Women Lead, and Vanessa has a really great understanding of this, is over and over in our evaluations, the biggest challenge is access to capital. If you are on your reservation with your business, there are not a whole lot of resources or options to get the seed money. And so hence our mission, our vision for Native Women Lead is to revolutionize the way we do this. Because we know that if you give Native women some seed money, they will do amazing with it, if given the chance and given that a little bit of a safety net to make this leap. So those are the, policy-wise, with financial institutions, and really encouraging other entities to support and buy Indian. Just the basic premise of what you all do, encourage others to buy Indian.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Steph. One of my jobs really within my company, but with Native Women Lead, is to be in these conversations with folks who have money and they're wanting to do good with money. And they want to put this money somewhere where they feel like they'll see, impact, but they also need to make a return. And the challenging thing is that, sometimes those desires are against each other, because sometimes the impact requires a multi-generational investment because the situation is so difficult. Other times we're talking about, risk management and risk valuation from a traditional banker's perspective, which comes from the last 70 years of banking law. So wanting to do good with that is hard when you have those constraints. But the exciting thing with what I see happening across the Indian country, what's happening with what you guys are doing with the most important piece, which is, the storytelling. And I don't mean storytelling to be not as important as journalism or academic research, but the storytelling to me is filling a major gap for so many of these folks who don't understand where we come from and don't understand the innovation that's happening. That's been happening, right? Indigenous technology is old. People are barely coming around to things like whole body. You have to be wholly connected to your body to have a full life. That research around the stuff within cedar ash has always been there. So the stories that we're able to have within Native Business Magazine, whether it's about Native Women Lead, whether it's about Stephanie I, but more importantly about what the women we're encountering does, allows us for the first time to not only go back with hard numbers to say, here's the return on investment based upon the loan or whatever you want to give them, but more importantly, here's that impact that you don't understand, that is touching all things from the ground to the sky, to the youngest to the eldest. This is the impact. And I think if there's one thing I would love to see more is how do we put more resources together to do this storytelling so that it has that multi-pronged effect of not only on the dollar side, but what are the ancestral to the future 7th generation impacts are. But more importantly, I think we have the power to sort of say their future is Indigenous because look at what's happening today, right? In terms of the economies are crashing left and right across the globe. Climate change is real, but also that the biodiversity across the entire world is held by Indigenous people. And we're less than 20% of the population. There's something magical here. And so for me, I think about all of those parts. Access to capital is just a pathway. I don't know. I'm starting to get on my little, pitch here on this, but I'm just so grateful to be able to say these things, but also to say more storytelling, more storytelling, more storytelling.
Hey, preach. You can stay up on that soapbox as long as you want, I think. And now, a quick message from the sponsor of this episode of the Native Business Podcast, Ukukti Consulting and JoyHuntington.com. Ukukti Consulting is a statewide communications and community relations firm serving a variety of public and private sector clients. Joy Huntington, Ukukti's Consulting's president and principal consultant, has lived in rural Alaska for 15 years and has an in-depth understanding of socioeconomic, cultural, environmental, and political issues that face rural communities. Ukukti Consulting brings positive energy and promotes meaningful relationships for projects and companies across Alaska through effective communications, outreach, and facilitation efforts. Joy Huntington, who has received the Alaska Federation of Natives President's Award for Future Leadership and the Doyon Limited Future Leadership Award, has also been featured in Native Business Magazine as one of the 2019 Native Business Top 50 Entrepreneurs. She is very involved in bettering Native communities and recently launched the Joy Huntington brand of products and services to facilitate her work across Indian country. Her services include motivational speaking, youth engagement, career planning and coaching, journaling workshops, mentoring women in business, and entrepreneurial workshops. For more information on Ukukti Consulting, please visit uqaqti.com, ukukti.com. And for more information about Joy Huntington, please visit joyhuntington.com today. That's JOYHUNTINGTON.com today. If you'd like to sponsor the Native Business Podcast, please email us at sponsor@nativebusinessmag.com. And now we return you to the Native Business Podcast. Carmen and I felt like it was so important to create this platform is because we don't have enough recurrence of those messages coming from our own people. And to your point about the messages and about the stories and about, that transfer of knowledge, that really, in our mind, we like to think of it as reclaiming the narrative. If we don't tell our story and if we don't create platforms for our people to share their stories, somebody will be happy to tell it for us. And it's usually not with our best interest in mind. At some point, I think we have to stop pointing the finger at folks and start realizing how we can empower ourselves is more viable than it's ever been. Here we are having this discussion while you guys are thousands of miles away from us, and we have to find the ways, the tools to come together, to share those stories, to do those things, and find all the ways that we can work together to uplift each other. And I think that the more that the next generation sees that, the more that we're going to see folks become the embodiment of it. And, it's hard because, both of you have mentioned one of the frustrations, and we hear this all of the time, is we go to a conference somewhere and folks say, buy Native, and everybody waves the flag and everybody's, yeah. And we talk about how big the economy is and collectively, how much money we have as an Indian country. And then you go back home and you call the procurement office and then it's like crickets, it's like literally.
Yep.
It's like, wait a minute, did I dream this, or did that really happen? And it's so frustrating because these systems, even in Indian country within procurement, are so entrenched. And I think really when you start to break it down, sometimes I think we wonder, is it because we don't believe we're good enough? Like, does the individual believe that as that person has grown up, that maybe they don't have value, or they can't see their qualities, or that they don't recognize that enough? So if they don't see that in themselves, is it possible that they couldn't possibly recognize it in other people? If they don't think they're good enough, other people couldn't be good enough. And I think it really goes down to your other point, which is it is socioeconomic. Every time we think about a business conversation in Indian country, it has tinges of socioeconomic implications. I think about when I grew up in Tulsa, I had a place where, I could go work fast food, or I could go mow a lawn, or I could find some way to go get some money, legitimately, right? And if I had something I wanted to do, I could find, at least if I wanted to work extra hours or get a second job. But what do you do if jobs aren't there? And how do you build capital to even self-capitalize your dream, let alone think about go get a loan at the bank? So, Stephanie, what would you say to the folks out there that are really going through it, that want to do something positive for themselves, but just seem overwhelmed?
First of all, it's who you surround yourself with, right? So you got to protect your optimism, and there's always going to be a lot of naysayers out there. But it's really important that you're seeking out people who are going to lift you up. And I think that was the special magic, so to speak, of Native Women Lead, that we were all there to lift each other up. So making sure you protect your optimism. And we all know that, I mean, with success comes some failures, and it's part of the game, but you've got to turn those losses into lessons and really move. There are so many resources out there that I've been fortunate to take advantage of. The Small Business Administration has a program that'll help you. I've had a SCORE mentor. I've used New Mexico Community Capital for Native entrepreneurs in residence. There are so many people that are rooting for our rise. We got to seek them out and be very intentional about it, and really protect our circles. And every chance we get, when we've made some progress, we got to leave the ladder down to make sure other folks don't have those sort of challenges.
Absolutely. Vanessa, any thoughts that came to mind from what Stephanie was saying?
I mean, I think the thing that Stephanie is just always been great about is she's always making us remember our why. And then more importantly, you know, to her point about protecting yourself and your optimism, I think that's really true. I think early on we just learn to second guess ourselves. We buy into this culture that of poverty and oppression. And I don't mean we buy in because, you know, we have the resources to do it. I mean, literally, we just assume this is the way life is supposed to be. But one thing I will say is, like, I just want to say that I recognize how hard it is if you're living in rural and on your ancestral tribal lands versus it is if you're living in your urban lands. Gary, I think you brought up that point. And, you know, and that's the complexity that we have to deal with, which is how do we support those folks who want to stay. And more importantly, from Native Women Lead, what we know is like over 40% of the women want to return home and open a business on their homelands. But because of the lack of resources and assets and just basic economies, you know, it's a really difficult thing. So the thing I would say to those young people or people living on their tribal lands trying to make ends meet is that there are resources. There are people out there. There's tons of us who want to help. Our biggest challenge is finding each other. But if you find places like Native Business Magazine, Native Women Lead, you go to your local universities, you know, to me, what I'm seeing is there's a coalescing, there's a growing, like, these like nuggets, these nodes of energy happening across Indian country. Find them, because every one of us is realizing we can't do this alone. It isn't just our job to have money to bring home. It is our job to change the way we think of economies. And so I hope every entrepreneur out there on their tribal lands, off their tribal lands, knows that they have all the answers. And you know, they have all the answers they need, and we're here waiting to find them. Mm-hmm. All of us are. Absolutely. Who've done this work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, isn't it, I've heard that saying, you can either find an excuse or you can find a way. And I think sometimes when we think about it in our communities, you know, because when you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking about, you know, sometimes you have to leave to go find the opportunity. You have to move. You have to get out of your safe space. You have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to go out there and find it. And it's amazing how, you know, folks can find a ride to the powwow if they want to get there quick enough, or to some social event.
Right?
But can you find, and it's amazing how many friends you can sleep on the couch, or a cousin, or how many relatives you come up with, you know, when you want to go get to that thing because you're motivated, you want to go do that. But it's amazing how we won't apply that same rationale or thought process to bettering ourselves. You know, say if there's no job here, maybe I could go sleep on the couch and just to get a job. Those are the same resources and sort of skill sets we put together when we want to go, you know, maybe see, you know, that girl that we've been looking at, or that guy, or, you know, somebody, or there's some situation happening, and we'll find all the reasons in the world to make it happen. But when it comes to our own betterment of our life, we won't apply those same things to that. And I think it's obvious we do that a lot of the time. So, definitely a lot of what you were saying was resonating to me. And I was just thinking through some of these things that we do. But
yeah, absolutely. All of the things that you both are saying definitely resonates with me. And I feel it, so thank you so much for being on today. And
we are who we've been looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. We ask people, what does your native business mean to you? And Stephanie, if you want to go first.
My native business means to me helping people level all the way up, whether it's in the project, your career, or family life. Every time I get an opportunity or the privilege to interface with somebody, hopefully I've left them in a better place than I found them. And so whether it's through an event that I've planned, facilitating a strategic planning session, or redoing somebody's logo, that it's uplifting and we level them to a whole new level. Yeah, that's
awesome.
What my business means to me.
Awesome. Vanessa, what does your native business mean to you?
Freedom. It's freedom for me. It's freedom for me as a business owner. It's freedom for me to decide what I want to work on, who I want to focus on, what solutions do I care about. But ultimately, the things we create, we hope that drives towards more freedom, whether it's for all of our clients, trying to solve their challenges. Entrepreneurship in business for me has been freedom, hands down.
Amazing.
Amen.
we can relate to both of those things, and thank you for sharing that with us. And before we wrap up this amazing episode of the Native Business Podcast, we would love, this is one of the reasons why we have such a freedom ourselves to be able to say, are we raising this person up too much, or is this compliant, or can we do this? This is all about everybody going out and making money, doing better, raising their profiles so they can help other people. So with Native Business in this podcast, we want you to give the biggest commercial for yourself that you could possibly give, where people can reach you,
and
how
find
they can get
you.
a hold of you. And so, Vanessa, your commercial is right now. So please tell the folks how they can get a hold of you and all that good stuff.
If you're looking for an Indigenous women-led think tank working to solve economic and health challenges, please contact us and find us at www.roanhorseconsulting.com, or you can email me directly at vanessa@roanhorseconsulting.com. We look forward to seeing you in our inbox.
Absolutely. Stephanie, your Native Business Podcast commercial. You're on.
Awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. If you need strategic planning, strategic facilitation, event planning that's off the charts, if you need some branding, I'm your gal, and so is my team. You can reach me at www.poston, POSTONLLC.com, or email me at STEPHPOSTON@MSN.com.
Amazing. Thank you both. It's such an honor to have you both. And, as a Native woman, it is just so inspiring, and it filled me up to hear both of your stories. So thank you very much. And thank you so much for listening to the Native Business Podcast.
Episode
number 8.
Thank you so much.